Okay, for public purposes, I'm letting everyone know that we are recording this pre-proposal conference. Um, this conference is for RFP 541209, Section 108, Loan Program Underwriter, and this is Community Development Block Grant funded. So I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Great. So this is as I said, the pre-proposal conference. Uh, Overview of the agenda is that we will welcome those who are here. We'll have those participating identify themselves, and then we will get to the crux of the matter for this RFP. I'll provide a brief RFP timeline overview. Steve Girodot, who's with us, will provide project background and description of needs. I will remind people of the key response items and will then engage in a Q&A if anyone has questions. So before we go further, there's another public announcement that I have to give. And that is, this call is being recorded. Please state your name and the company organization that you represent when you are unmuted. All potential respondents are encouraged to ask questions. You may enter them into the chat at any time. All verbal responses to questions provided today are unofficial until documented in writing as an official response in the Unibonfire Procurement RFP number 541209 Q&A. Submit additional questions in the Bonfire RFP 51209 supplier portal, and we will respond to all potential respondents via Unibonfire. Again, RFP 541209 in the Q&A. So this is an overview of the project timeline that I will detail later in the meeting. And with that, I'm going to come back to the RFP, and I will mention to you that there is an RFP document. The RFP document is a standalone document. There are response attachments that you need to include with your proposals. And I will elaborate on those when we get to the key response items section of this RFP. So I will, at this time, move back to the project timeline overview. We advertised this opportunity on February 5th, 2026. We had a question due date of February 13th, 2026. And if any questions were received, we would be posting them tomorrow, February 19th. However, there were no questions that were posted in the Bonfire Q&A. So at this point, we move forward with a March 5th, 2026, 3 p.m. proposal due date deadline. There will be a required virtual public recording on March 6th, which is the day after proposals are due. That's a Friday at 9:15 Eastern Time. So for those who want to know who submitted proposals, we will be doing that unveiling on Friday, March 6th at 9:15 a.m. But all proposals are due in the UNA supplier portal March 5th, 2026 at 3 p.m. And then any work schedule that comes about based on contracting with a supplier, that actual work start date will not take place until City Council the Detroit City Council has approved any contract that is submitted to them for review. So with that, we're going to move back to our agenda, and at this point in time, I'm going to allow those who are on this call to identify yourselves by name and title. And if I omitted saying that I'm from the Office of Contracting and Procurement, I'm correcting that now. I am the buyer for this particular opportunity, and I'll let others who are on this call introduce themselves.
Hi, hi everyone. I'm Larry Castro, the Director of Housing and Development Underwriting in the Housing and Revitalization Department for the City of Detroit.
Hi everyone,
Great.
Steve. I manage the Infrastructure and PFR Underwriting section, also within the Housing Revitalization Department. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Rebecca LeBove, Chief Development and Investment Officer for Housing and Revitalization.
Great to have you with us. So I will acknowledge that at this point, no potential suppliers appear to have joined us, but there might be the possibility that they join us before we conclude this pre-proposal conference. If they do, we will continue to move forward and address any questions or concerns that they may have. And if they do not join us, this recorded meeting for the pre-proposal conference will be available and posted on YouTube. Once we conclude this meeting, I will alert our e-procurement team. They will then provide a link for me to then share with potential suppliers. And so once I get that link, I will send it via Bonfire, this RFP. I will send it to all potential bidders who we invited to this opportunity. So with that being said, I'm going to allow Steve Garadot to provide the overview for this RFP and any other pertinent details that he wants to share with potential bidders.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And could I share my screen?
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
I'm going to stop sharing so that you can share.
Perfect. And like you said, since no one's here, I think we'll just kind of go high level, going through the RFP document itself. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so the dates and things are as Elizabeth already outlined. Question due dates, things like that. Let's get down to, and this is the standalone RFP document that Elizabeth was referencing. Project request, and then to background. So the city of Detroit established a Section 108 loan pool of $75 million to advance the city's goals of affordable housing. That's what the project itself is going to be. This RFP is for an underwriter. So the loan pool itself will provide low-cost financing for development projects, including affordable, mixed income, mixed-use development. It can support the acquisition, eligible soft costs, rehab, and new construction for qualified projects. There's be 4 different loan products, to meet the variety of stages here, financial circumstances, and project types. These include short-term acquisition loans, acquisition mini-perm loans, senior construction to permanent loans, and equity bridge loans. The firm selected will complete a thorough review of project applications to evaluate the financial viability of the projects and the ability of the projects to meet the debt service obligations of the Section 108 loan, focus on reducing risks to HUD and the city. Underwriting standards will generally align with HUD Section 108 loan guidelines for income producing properties. Larry, anything high level you'd like to add, or do you want me to just keep going through the detail we have?
No, I think that sort of summarizes the types of loan programs we're anticipating that the underwriter would be responsible for providing a review and summary report for to the city to evaluate the applications from the developers of these projects.
Certainly, thank you. The contract itself will be for 1 year with an option for 2 one-year renewals. Any renewal option exercised under the contract is effective only after city council and city council approval, and that has to be signed by our chief procurement officer. We do anticipate 1 award as a result of this RFP. So we're looking for 1 organization to complete the underwriting. So now we get into the services to be performed. And again, this document goes into a lot of detail, and I'll try to keep it high level, but I do want to touch on some things that what our expectations are for the underwriting services here. So the firm selected will complete a thorough review of project applications that have passed a threshold review completed by HRD. So HRD, the city, will complete a threshold review of the applications, turn it over to the underwriters for a thorough review. The thorough review will be of projects and the ability of those projects to meet the debt service obligations of the Section 108 loan with a focus on reducing the risk to HUD and the city. Underwriting standards, again, will generally align with HUD's Section 108 underwriting guidelines for income producing properties that are included with this RFP. Things that the underwriting team will be looking for: evaluate the credit worthiness or risk providing financing to a specific borrower. The underwriting process will include evaluation of both the financial feasibility and the risks of making loan to this third party. Objectives are as follows: make sure the borrower has experience and capacity to undertake the project, has a successful accomplishment record of developing and operating similar projects, looking at market conditions, development costs are accurately projected, looking at cash flow, and again, collateral value is sufficient to cover loans in case of non-payment. Other items we're looking for: evaluation of the borrower, market, neighborhood conditions, and other key contacts, such as credit worthiness of prospective borrowers by completing a review of company and personal financial statements, evaluating historical trends, financial statements, management performance, market and industry conditions, collateral analysis, and capital needs assessment, and analyze any reports. The firm selected will evaluate economic feasibility of the project by reviewing all project development pro formas, financial feasibility documents such as budgets, rent rolls, sources of uses, operating budget, cash flow, financial documents, and again, identifying and verifying proposed collateral structure, sources of the loan repayment, should these financial objectives not come to fruition against city and HUD standards. The deliverable, what we're looking for the underwriting team to produce, is what we call a credit memo. That is a memo and a recommendation to the city loan review committee to review as part of their loan approval process. The expectation is that this memo will include the following: summary of key credit issues and underwriting considerations, risks, and proposed mitigation measures, project development pro forma, summary of credit and financial status of borrower and guarantors, recommendations, which should include, if in the affirmative, proposed terms for the HUD loan approval, or if it's subject to an issue resolution, list issues to resolve for loan application resubmission, or if it's a denial, then list reasons for denial of the loan request. Also providing a draft of the credit memo to the guarantee prior to providing to the loan review committee. And again, the city will consider the recommendation from the firm, but the city will be responsible for making a final determination regarding any loans. Larry, anything else about the credit memo or what the deliverable is, what we're expecting? Again, the idea is that HRD completes the threshold review. We send that to the selected firm for this for their underwriting, and then this deliverable of the credit memo comes back to the city.
No, I don't have anything to add, Steve.
Okay. Going through the rest of the RFP, it talks a little bit more detail about the underwriting process. A lot of these came directly from the HUD standards terms. I don't know if it's necessarily beneficial for us to read every one of these, but there's items on eligibility review, alignment with national objectives, project feasibility and readiness. Is the project site ready? Zoning, site control, stuff like that. Certainly environmental clearance, looking at a trade payment breakdown, things like that. Borrower experience and management capacity. Borrower financial capacity and credit worthiness. There's details outlining what it is that we're looking for with all the different items that were named above. Project financial analysis, again, looking at financial documents, cash flow, rent roll, project pro formas, loan draw schedule, letters of intent for other funders in the project, initial review of cost reasonableness, inclusion of 108 financing fees, proof of all funds being committed to the project, and then collateral, loan repayment guarantees. Here we have a little information on the different project types or loan types we're looking at making here. Again, short-term acquisition, mini perm loan, senior construction to permanent loan, and equity bridge loans. These are the types of to be making and the types of projects you should be looking for to underwriting. Some operational information. The firm we working closely with HRD staff. Then beyond this, we get into the boilerplate OCP information here. We're looking for firms that have experience doing similar types of work. Can hear the terms of our proposal. The question deadline, I believe Elizabeth said we haven't received any questions. And we talk about that evaluation criteria of the proposal. So again, there's 20 points. There's 20 points each here. So we're looking at relevant experience, capacity, strength of your proposal, your past experience, and then your cost proposal and fee schedule for what you'll be charging the city to work on these projects. Larry, anything else about the evaluation procedure you think we should go into? I think it's going to be kind of dependent on what the applications look like, but we do have the rough estimate of what we're going to be scoring.
I think it's in the document. Yeah. So I think that can be reviewed, but it's a typical competitive process that the city utilizes to evaluate anyone who's seeking the opportunity to do work for the city.
Great. Some OCP documents or information here on protests, making sure your application is accurate and complete, responding to our documents here that are included. So the questionnaire, cost fee schedule, forms, affidavits, conditions of award. We've included the cross-cutting federal regulations. Yeah, I think this is all CP documents. You can ask questions and talks about payment and invoices. A lot of boilerplate stuff I'm not sure would be beneficial for us to necessarily go through. Inspector General. Okay. That's it for this document. I don't know, Larry, any thoughts or anything else you think we should go through?
No, I would, I guess, ask Elizabeth if she feels like there's anything that we could have covered in any more depth or anything. But other than that, I think that was a good overview of the program, Steve. Appreciate it.
Great. And I concur, Steve. You actually touched on some items that, since you mentioned them, I don't need to go back and do. But I will share this bit of information before I go into what the attachments are. And this has to do with, let's see, let me say that in 2024, I think it was May of 2024, had made some updates and changes, and we were apprised of those changes through the Office of Development and Grants with the city. And it has to do with evaluation criteria. Previously, for decades and decades, local preferences were not considered when responding to federally funded opportunities, in particular HUD federal funded opportunities. But there has been a change, and as of May of 2025, we were advised through our Office of Development and Grants that local preferences are no longer prohibited in the solicitation and evaluation process for that solicitation. Whatever restrictions previously applied to Section 108 loan underwriters, the city department, which is our Housing and Development Revitalization Department, will monitor to make certain that compliance obligations are followed, as Steve alluded to, in the review and the awarding and monitoring of Section 108 loans. And so I'm saying that in the RFP document, there is now, in the evaluation criteria, a section that includes, I'll move it over to my screen and I'll share it, that now includes local preferences. So, City of Detroit, Office of Contracting and Procurement, we did meet with our law department and discuss the implications of the change to CSR 200.319. So this is a result of changes to CSR 200.319. So in the RFP, Steve talked about the 100-point allocation. We now have 26 maximum additional points in that criteria consideration. If any respondents have certification from the city's civil rights, inclusion, and opportunity department, then you should submit with your proposal response the certificate or the letter that identifies your firm as Detroit headquartered, Detroit based, Detroit resident, Detroit small business, Detroit micro business concern, a joint venture, mentor firm. If there is a subcontractor that is going to be working with the prime who is awarded this opportunity, then in the evaluation, we will also consider whether that subcontractor is Detroit headquartered business, Detroit based business, Detroit resident business, Detroit small business, or Detroit micro business concern. And then I'll mention that a business can only be either a Detroit small business or a Detroit micro business concern, but not both. So if you have certificates for both, you can only submit either Detroit small base or Detroit micro business. A business can only be a joint venture or a mentor venture, but not both. So again, if you're respondents and this category of information impacts you and your status as a business concern, business entity, then there actually is enough time if you're not registered with our City of Detroit CREO department is the acronym that we use to refer to it. But you need to do it right away in order to be able to submit evidence of that status with your proposal. So under no circumstances, if you forget to submit it or you don't have it or you have it and it's expired, we will not be able to give it consideration. So I'm just sharing that with you at this point. Again, that's evaluation criteria. In terms of respondent info, and I'm just sharing with you, it is attached in the RFP as an additional attachment in the public files. This is an explanation about the equalization credit statement information regarding those categories I just mentioned. There is a hyperlink that's included in this document that if you want to register for this opportunity, you need to make haste and do that right away, or other future opportunities if you wish to get vetted status from our Civil Rights Inclusion and Opportunity Office. So sharing that with you. And now I'm going to go to the response items. So I'm going to bring up response item A, which is the respondent questionnaire. This is a document that you must submit because this tells us about your firm. It gives us an idea, a flavor of who you are, how you've operated in your history, and whether or not you have ever used a subcontractor. If you're looking to use one with this opportunity, there is a section for you to identify the relevant experience over the last 5 years supporting your subcontractor's ability to perform. Part 2 of this document gets into respondent capacity. So when we do the evaluation of respondents, we will look at who are the key personnel who have been identified, how many will be dedicated to this project, and if it's not a full-time equivalent, then you'll let us know what portion of that individual or individual's time will be dedicated to this project. If there is an organization chart, we ask you to include the organization chart and the resumes of any of your personnel who are going to be associated. The other thing that I'll mention, and that is in the RFP, we are looking for respondents to have at least 5 years relevant experience within the last 5 years to support your ability to perform as we would expect on this project. Now, the actual proposal part of your response will happen with attachment B, which is the proposal introduction and solution approach. So you will have an opportunity to, again, in this format, identify who you are as a firm, what your experience has been, indicate your commitment that once you submit pricing for this opportunity, that it will be firm for at least 120 days. So we will expect a statement from each respondent organization indicating that. Then you'll have an opportunity, based on the scope that Steve shared with you, to indicate how your firm will respond to meeting those expectations and the deliverables that were identified. In terms of any technical information, I'll ask Steve and Larry, would there, for this opportunity, would there be a need for the respondents to interface in any way with stored city data, and/or will they be providing information that the department would need to store in city data?
I believe, Elizabeth, is a good question. Certainly will provide the underwriters with the information that they need to complete the review. In terms of interfacing with specific city data, I mean, there may be a smart sheet that we use to utilize to store data and forms and such like that. So they may be given access to maybe a folder or a smart sheet link. But in terms of like interfacing with actual like a database or something like that, no, I don't believe so.
Great. I appreciate you confirming that. And so, based on that, that detailed response information, I removed that from the RFP. There is a section that if it were to apply, then I would provide uh, another attached document. But thank you very much for letting us know that respondents will not have to directly access any stored city data in any way. That the smart sheet uh, mechanism or tool that would be used to share information with them or for them to provide information back to the department, that is perfectly fine. So I'll then move to attachment C, which has to do with pricing. And for that, we don't provide a chart or a fill-in, as sometimes responders will ask us, is there a price sheet? No, because we're looking to see what what are the fees based on your personnel if you're responding to this opportunity that you will build in as your fixed hourly rate cost, or however you determine fee rates for personnel who would be a part of this dedicated project. What we will say is that we want you to provide a detailed line item project budget for this opportunity. The pricing um, is going to be deemed firm or fixed for the duration of the contract. So if we were to enter negotiations regarding the pricing that a respondent has submitted, we will negotiate the price. And once we negotiate the pricing for the contract, that will be firm and fixed for the duration of the contract period. So we will look for a personnel fee schedule with hourly or um, whatever the rate mechanism is that respondents have. So in addition to the cross-cutting fees that Steve mentioned, there is additional information that we included in the RFP that identifies other compliance standards that the federal government expects to be maintained with federally supported solicitations. And so those items have been included as attachments. So at this point in time, I will ask the department whether there is anything else that they would like to share or raise. There are two other attachments that I'll mention, but I don't want to forget to give the opportunity to Steve or Larry if there's anything else you'd like to interject.
Well, Elizabeth, I would like to say, as you were talking about the fees to be included with the proposal, to keep in mind that there are the 4 different types of anticipated loans, and that there should be enough information to evaluate what the anticipated price or time expectation for a different type of loan. So keeping in mind that some are as simple as a short-term acquisition loan, others are more long-term loans that may have much more review. There'll be a certain level of required review for all types of loans, but there may be some that are more complex. So allowing the evaluators to be able to consider if there's an additional, like a base fee plus an hourly amount or something, however you want to structure it, just to allow us to effectively understand what your anticipated pricing would be for the work.
Great. Appreciate you sharing that and clarifying that, Larry. Very good. Well, the last two attachment items that actually there's more than two. I didn't include it here, but I may be able to share that with you by going to the unit projects and actually letting you see what that looks like. But attachment D, based on city ordinance, includes documents that we're required to request from vendors. Some of those are items, disclosures, non-disclosure, collusion disclosure form, um, uh, acknowledgement if there is any perceived conflict of interest. Uh, those types of items are covered in attachment D, forms, affidavits, and documents. There are some forms that are not required, but we encourage suppliers to make certain that they apply for, such as a city clearance. City clearance can sometimes take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks or longer, but the city must make certain that when we contract with entities, that we're not contracting with entities that owe the city money or owe the state of Michigan money. So our city clearance includes not only a city of Detroit check of respondents, but also a state of Michigan check of respondents. So we encourage potential respondents to apply for a city clearance as soon as possible. If you have your clearance and you have the other documents that were required as a condition of award, you're welcome to include them with your response. The more time we are able to save on the front end with required documents, that means the more time we save on the back end. The other document that we want respondents to look at is attachment E, Model Professional Services Contract. We want you to review that to see whether or not there is any language that you want the city to consider as exempted language. If you would redline the model professional service contract so that we are able to identify either in the contract or you're welcome to do excerpts from the contract. But we are not going to negotiate after the fact if there is a potential of award exempt language. So it's the responsibility of respondents if you know there's going to be exempt language that you want to have considered before we initiate a contract with your company. You need to include that with your proposal response. So I've covered those items. And so now, and so all of the attachments, A, B, C, D, and E, we need you to acknowledge in some form or another um, with your proposal response. So let's see. I don't think there's anything else that we need to cover at this point. I was going to see if there um, is an opportunity for me to engage the Unibond buyer procurement opportunity to share what some of those documents look like. And all right, I'm not going to try to do that at this point. I'm going to save us some time. We've covered the essentials. We don't need to remain on the call until 3 o'clock. We've covered all of the items that we need to cover. Let me say for potential respondents, we have a new system called Unibonfire. And because we have that new system, I'm hoping that that is not why some of you did not join us today. Um, you must be registered in Unibonfire in order to respond to this opportunity. If you encounter any difficulty accessing Unibonfire or um, navigating in that bonfire system, there are e-procurement members who are able to assist you with that. And you can go to the City of Detroit website. If you then would go to the Office of Contracting and Procurement, you can then put supplier support in your search mechanism and information regarding both Unibonfire procurement and our Oracle system, which you need to be registered in also if you're going to have a contracted opportunity. Information regarding both of those platforms is available through supplier support. We have some PDFs and videos as well as live session opportunities that are available to potential respondents who would prefer an opportunity for a 30-minute, quick 30-minute session on how to address our new procurement system and or get registered so that you would be in our database for a contracted opportunity. So with that being said, I would like to thank the team from the Housing and Revitalization Department for joining me this afternoon for this pre-proposal conference for the Section 108 Loan Program Underwriter. If there are any questions, although the question deadline is passed, simply submit those questions in the Unibonfire system. If you get a notice telling you that the question period has expired, please reach out to our bonfire e-procurement team, who will then let you know how you can get a question to me. So with that, I want to thank everyone for your time. It is 3:50 p.m. on February the 18th, 2026. This is the City of Detroit Office of Contracting and Procurement. And this concludes our discussion regarding RFP 541209. Thank you, everyone, and you have a great day.